There's something connection. Okay, let's start the live
Okay.
on both sides. Just to check. I think we are live on both. Why my sound on actually is noisy. Okay,
Okay.
I can still hear you. Oh no. Is my mic problematic? Okay, never mind, let's just go into it. I hope this is not affecting the sound in any way.
I think on my end it's okay.
Yeah, but on my end is I can still hear you. Can you just test for me? Sorry.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, I've plugged in the mic, but it doesn't seem to be. Oh, I know why. I got switched to another mode. Okay.
Okay.
We're all good now.
Okay, great. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So let's talk about depression this week. I mean, we talked about it last week. Last week we talked about the symptoms of depression. We also talked about the causes of depression, some thinking traps that we fall into, and of course, we talked about what we can do about it. And if you guys didn't manage to catch that, you can catch it on, well, actually on all our channels. If you want the podcast version, just search "Getting Naked with Happiness" on Stefan's channels, and it's on my YouTube and my IG as well. So go back and have a listen if you want to catch up with that. Otherwise, let's go right into today's topic of depression part 2, which is I think we're going to go heavier into the cognitive side of it and the psychological side of it. Right, so we're going to talk about cognitive distortions, which sounds very like, okay, what the hell is that? When Stefan first explained it to me, I was like, okay, that seems a bit like not the easiest thing to understand. So we're gonna try to unpack it now and explain it in a simpler way. So maybe Stefan can tell us a bit more about what cognitive distortions are.
Well, cognitive distortions are simply our negative thinking patterns, widely also known as thinking traps. So if you could imagine that if you're walking on the road, there's traps on the floor, and then you want to avoid the trap, right? Yeah. So these are exactly this cognitive distortions. So what are they? They are a byproduct of our earlier events. It could be from a trauma or could be a negative experience. And then after a period of time, it becomes our habitual thinking. So I call them inner bullies because they bully us. They become our inner critics. They also become our inner victims. They are simply voices in our heads telling us to think in a certain way, in a negative way, often us leading into dysfunctional or unhealthy decisions. They also impact our self-confidence, our relationships, our performance. Yeah, so these are cognitive distortion as negative thinking patterns.
So in short, cognitive distortions could be seen as like a bully in your head who keeps like punching you. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's a great way to sum it up. But maybe an even better way for everyone to really get into it is like giving us some examples, like specific examples of very common cognitive distortions. I think there are quite a few, and maybe we can go into detail on a few of them.
Okay, let's do that. I just want to say that these cognitive distortions or thinking patterns, right, they are part of our defense mechanism. So they are here to stay. We acquired them because that we went through a bad experience and because we've become wounded and hurt. So due to that incident, we developed this thinking in order to protect ourselves from future events. But yet it becomes a vicious cycle, right? So today let's talk about a few of them because there are 15 to begin, but I think due to time constraint, we can talk we can share 3, okay? So the first one is called black and white thinking, which is also known as polarized thinking, right? And black and white thinking is very common in many individuals. So the word suggests itself that it's either black or white. There is no gray in between. We can always say that it is all or nothing thinking.
And why is this a bad thing?
Well, it's unhealthy is because it's also we become very judgmental. So people who are very judgmental or perfectionistic, they will have this sort of thinking. And they may impact themselves by having this sort of perception in their lives. For example, why is it bad? let's say I have black and white thinking, for example. So I may
Mm-hmm.
say something like, I will always fail in everything I do. No matter how hard I try, I will just fail. I'm such a failure. Or whatever I do in my life, I will always not be good enough, or I'll never be good enough. They will use keywords like always or never.
Actually, it
Right.
sounds like a bad relationship argument. You know how, like, I don't know, like, you know, when you have there are a lot of articles on things like that, how to argue in a relationship, for example, with like your significant other. And the thing that pisses most people off is like if let's say your partner doesn't do something that you ask them to do, like you ask them like, can you please take out the trash, right? And then maybe they do it like every day, but they miss like 2 days. Saying something like you never take out the trash really pisses a person off because it kind of negates all the other times that they have taken out the trash. So it sounds almost like this particular black and white cognitive distortion or polarized thinking is like that. Is it something like that? And it kind of pisses yourself off, right? Because in this case, the bully is bullying yourself,
Yeah.
and it pisses you off because it kind of says it's like you say all or nothing, right? So if you cannot do it like all the time, or you cannot do it once, it means you can't do it all the time.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought it up because we talk about how to argue in relationships. That's quite interesting. Talking about
Yeah.
relationships and black and white thinking, the sentences may sound something like this. They could suddenly put a person a person with black and white thinking, right, may idealize the partner, and they may say something like, "Oh, I love you. You're the best person in the world. I'm the luckiest person with you. Etc. etc." But they also very quickly, when triggered, they also very quickly move the person from a good category to a bad category. So they say things like, "I hate you. You're such a complete asshole, bitch, or bastard." They are very extreme. Yeah.
Okay.
So a person with black or
So
white think sorry. A person with black or
no,
white
no, no,
thinking,
no. Yeah.
okay, they will be very extreme. They will flip from either black or either white, or either white or to either black.
And this is sorry. Can we? So this when a person has this sort of black and white thinking about themselves, this leads to depression because it's very easy to fall into the hole of blackness, right? In this case, because it's not like, okay, I screwed up once. Yeah, I'm gonna just just move on and do better the next time. It's like I screwed up means I am a screw up,
Yeah.
and that's how people fall into that sort of trap or like hole of depression.
Yes. So following that whole depression is very pretty easy for them, or they can cause them anxiety, dark emotions, and at the same time that they may give out on life easier or give out on work. They tend to give out easier, or they will blame themselves faster, right? So if let's say at the workplace, if they are employees, they may give out a project faster, or they think that they are not good enough, or if let's say that they are a superior or a boss, they may likely fire someone faster also, because they're very black and white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's one, right? Let me give you one example at work. I don't know whether have you met people, they say something like, "Oh, this is my job. That is my role, and that is your role, and this is their role, and this is my stuff, that is your stuff." So they really compartmentalize what they do.
okay. Okay, so I think I kind of understand what you mean by black and white thinking and why this is really unhelpful to ourselves. It's also very unkind, but I guess like talking about cognitive distortions in general, they're all very how we show unkind bullying ways to ourselves, right? So that's one. What would be another one be?
In terms of another inner bully?
Another inner bully or another
Okay.
cognitive distortion. Let's go through three, okay? Because I know
Okay.
you said there are 15,
Yeah.
but let's try to do three just so that I'm sure among us we will have some that we can really relate to.
Okay. The other one would be filtering, right? If you think about the word filtering, the first word that comes to pop into my mind is the Instagram filter, right? We try to make
Yes.
things look better. But
Yeah.
this filtering works the opposite. It's the negative filter, which is
It's
also
like
part.
it's like an ugly filter.
Yes, the ugly filter. So what happens in this filter is simply our negativity bias at work. We pay attention only at the negative things and discount the positive, right? So example, if your manager or your teacher give you 5 good feedbacks about you, and then leave with 1 negative feedback, you will leave the room thinking not the 5, but with the 1. and be really affected by it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so basically it's like one bad thing that automatically puts on a negative filter on everything.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna get a question from one of our viewers on Facebook, on Facebook Live, because yeah, we are coming to you from Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube Live. And this is from Shivanjali Rohan. And this person asks, what is the best way to deal with polarized thinking, especially with near and dear ones who have let you down a lot of the time? It sounds like this person is very disappointed with maybe someone who is close to them. And yeah, maybe this person has let them down more than once, obviously. So would this still count as polarized thinking, and how can we deal with it? Okay, maybe how we can deal with it, we can save for the next step. But does this count as polarized thinking first?
In terms of loved ones?
Yeah, so if this person has let you down a lot, I think what the viewer is asking is, if this person has let you down more than once, they probably have a very negative view of the person and any situation to do with the person. So that counts as polarized thinking. Am I right?
Well, I'm reading the question also here that what is the best way to deal with polarized thinking, especially with near or dear ones who have let you down a lot of time? Okay, I think the way I understand the question is that this person is thinking that the loved ones has a lot of polarized thinking. Am I right?
Or no, I don't think so. I think I think the question, well, let's save the second part of the question for later. Okay. But I'm just asking, like, so I think what the person is asking is, this person has let him or her down a lot of times.
Okay.
And maybe this person then has a negative view of the person because he's been let down a few times. Okay. Is that considered polarized thinking?
Yes, it could be considered polarized thinking. If let's say that, let's say using me as an example, that I'm going through a lot of experience with somebody else and I've been let down a lot of times, they could be it could be known as polarized thinking, black and white thinking. Okay.
So Shivanshali, we'll get into the how we can deal with it in a bit. But maybe we can just go into one more cognitive distortion that, well, I think actually maybe I will suggest this one, since I also have gone through the list of 15 with you. So the third one may be the cognitive distortion that I feel that I am actually quite guilty of, is emotional reasoning.
Well, I think emotional reasoning is simply a lot about, it's about it's also known as self-fulfilling prophecy, right? This is whereby it's a very common distortions. They will use their emotions to decide or perceive their reality. So let me give you one example. Sorry, my voice is breaking out a little bit. Have you ever experienced things like, I feel guilty, therefore I've done something bad? Or something like, if I feel bad, means I'm a bad person.
Yes. Although I was thinking more of like another, maybe let me bring it to a more like maybe an example that some of you can relate to, and this is slightly embarrassing to talk about, but okay, we're all friends and let's just be vulnerable together on this one, okay? Yeah. So I think in previous relationships, for some reason, if they would do something that maybe, for example, like I couldn't get them on the phone, right? And then I couldn't get this person on the phone for like, say, an hour. I would immediately jump to the conclusion that they must be doing something bad. Like they must be cheating on me just because I can't get hold of them. And then I get very upset about that. Would that be considered emotional reasoning?
Yes, it is. And what you just said is very relevant, Jade. And thanks for being vulnerable to share that.
Yeah, because it sounds like a psycho, like ex-girlfriend or something.
Well, what you said there is actually two of them. One is emotional reasoning, and the other one is jumping to conclusion, which we are not covering today. Yeah. Which is one of the common ones. So emotional reasoning.
Hold on, let me also hold on. Okay. Sorry, can we have a? Sorry, this is what happens when you have a open concept apartment and I can hear like his like computer sound. Sorry, yeah, get back to it. Sorry.
Yeah, so emotional reasoning is exactly that. This is whereby what we feel and we think that is the truth, and we make our emotions, we judge based on emotions. To build on that, for example, that in a relationship, if a person, let's say boy and girl or whichever, they're out and one of them is talking to the waiter or a service person, And then one of them starts to get jealous, and the jealous
Yeah.
person may feel that, oh, I think that my partner is flirting or cheating because I'm feeling jealous. So
Okay, I'm definitely guilty of this. I mean, yeah, I feel slightly embarrassed to say I'm definitely guilty of this. So that would be considered emotional reasoning. So basically, it's the feeling that I feel, which in this case, like I am jealous, and I attribute that to something else that may not be correct.
Yeah. One of the most common ones, I don't want to quote women, but men also, but most likely women, is that I always heard this phrase of, I feel fat, means that I am fat.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I think I am definitely guilty of this one as well.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
it could also be applicable to people with anxiety or fear. Like, for example, that if I feel anxious, there must be something wrong with me. I must go and see a
Okay.
doctor. Or
Yeah.
if, let's say, someone has object fear like cockroaches or lizards or rats, so they'll think that, oh, there's a cockroach over there. The cockroach will sure fly to me if I walk past that direction.
Oh my gosh, I am so guilty of all of the above, the cockroach one as well. Okay, so I think that's something for me that really is one of the key cognitive distortions that I'm very guilty of. And as we said, there are 15, but in the interest of time, let's just go through these three. If you do go online, you can have a look. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find the whole list of cognitive distortions. And keep your questions coming if you have a specific one that you want us to address, and we'll do that at the end. But let's just move this conversation along a little bit. So also to address an earlier question, and also for myself, because, okay, it's great that we know all these distortions, but it's even greater if we know how to deal with them. So what are some of the ways that we can sort of deal with this? I know the first step is awareness. So now I am highly aware that I am very guilty of emotional reasoning. Yeah, but if we have sort of a way to deal with it, that would be great.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for the love, by the way. I see all the hearts.
So there are some really good tools that we can use so that we can prevent them from happening, or when they happen, when you activate a so-called thinking trap, you could do these 4 things. I call it the 4 Ds. So the 4 Ds stands for distract, dispute, diffuse, and distance.
Okay.
So
yeah, let's go into them one by one. I guess distract to me seems the easiest, which is something that I probably do. And I'm thinking like, okay, let's say I'm in a situation where I'm very upset over something that is probably a result of my emotional reasoning. So I think the first thing to do is to distract myself, usually with sports or with maybe talking to another friend.
Yeah, this is exactly right, Jade. What you just mentioned is just distract. Distract could be talking to a friend, walking away from a situation, go to do sports, go for a run, dance, play a music, go watch a TV, go play a game, read a book, anything, or eat something, right? But don't turn to alcohol, because you promote alcoholism or whichever, or cigarettes. Of course, that would be related to addiction. But what I'm trying to say here, distract is a good technique for when you activate the thinking trap. Because sometimes we may argue that thinking trap happened, why not let's go and confront it and work on it immediately. But sometimes when thinking trap happens, it's too immediate and we feel a arousal of emotion and we get triggered. So what you say is that after having awareness, we need to buy time for ourselves to distract ourselves from being affected by it. So distraction is a good strategy. That's number 1.
Okay. And number 2, you said, is to dispute.
Yeah, dispute is whereby we have decided to let's face this straight on and see what we can learn from it, right? So the great way is to keep a thought journal, or grab a piece of A4 paper and start writing down all your thoughts of what has happened, how do you feel about it, who were the parties involved, and what is a reaction, etc., etc. After you're done with it, walk away for a while, and then come back to the piece of paper and go through it and ask the following questions. Is there another perspective to this? Did I miss out anything? The way I felt towards this situation, was it warranted or not warranted? Was there evidence to support that I was right, that I felt this way, or was I wrong? Yeah. So this is also a way of putting our thoughts, negative thoughts, into trial, like going to a courtroom and then there's a jury looking at each other, right? And then this is whereby we put our thoughts on trial and think whether are we right or wrong. And most often our negative thoughts may not be accurate.
Okay, so it's a good way to, I guess, if you write it down, then you kind of can look at it later. And sometimes when you see it visually, you're like, oh my gosh, that is so not true. And it's just something that I kind of thought and dreamt up.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course,
Okay.
at the end of the day, when we do dispute, there may be also an incident that they may be true. So
Okay.
but it's good that you have went through the situation. At least you're not letting the thoughts to run your emotions wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the third D is to distance.
Oh, the third one, maybe I could share diffuse first, if
Okay.
possible. Okay, so the first diffuse thing about aromatherapy.
Yeah,
Okay,
like when you burn the aroma, the oil, the essential oils, right? You dilute it in water and then you diffuse it through the room.
yeah. So when exactly the case, so like a aromatherapy, we have, but let's start with a negative thought of ourselves. So let me give you one example. I have written it here. I don't know whether you can see this.
We might need it a bit nearer. I am not good enough.
Yeah, I am not good enough. So this is
Yeah.
a negative belief of myself. So it could be I am hopeless, I am unlovable, I am a failure, I'm an imposter, I am not good enough, I am helpless, etc. So any negative beliefs that we have of ourselves, write on a piece of paper for the first part of diffusion, stand in front of the mirror and look at it on your chest and say to yourself, I am not good enough. So this is what happens when we have this negative thought. Then the next step is take a deep breath and then move this paper to our forehead and then say, change the word to, I think that I am not good enough, right? So we are shifting it, diffusing out. And then the third breath we take is, we pull this paper out from our head and then look it in front of us and say that, I notice that I have the thought of not being good enough. So we
Okay,
have,
so it's a three-step thing, right? So let's bring it back to an example so that people it's a bit easier to understand. So I think in the case, let's take the case of the waiter or waitress so-called flirting with our partner. Right. So this
yes,
upsets us very much. So maybe you might write down I'm not good enough, or this person yeah, maybe I'm not good enough because if I was good, if I were good enough, my partner wouldn't flirt with someone else.
yeah,
Right. So the first thing is to write it down like I'm not good enough. The second, when you move it up to your forehead, is to realize that what you're doing is you're thinking that you're not good enough.
yeah,
Right. And the third thought is that you notice that you're thinking that you're not good enough, which I know, guys, sounds very Inception at this level. Right. You know, if you've watched the movie, which is actually one of the rare movies that I have watched, it sounds very Inception, like a mirror within a mirror within a mirror. But I think I get where this is going because what you're doing is the thought that I'm not good enough, you're realizing that that is just a thought and that you are actually noticing this thought.
yeah,
So it's not exactly real. So I think
yeah,
this is actually, I mean, I think this is good for all, this 4D approach is good for all the cognitive distortions that we went over. But like for myself, like I said, I think emotional reasoning is the one that I struggle with. And I am seeing how this could be really helpful, right? To remind myself that this is actually just a thought. And if you've been following us for a while and following some of our podcasts, you'll realize that we've talked about how our thoughts are not always correct. It's just that our brains need to find some sort of story for our thoughts, but it's not exactly accurate.
yeah,
So that is diffusing. Is basically, like you say, is like how you diffuse essential oils. It's kind of taking it and like, whoo, so it's not so intense and it's kind of
yes,
like spread out, right?
yeah. And it's also part of
Okay.
my mental training. Yeah.
Okay. And so then the final D, because you said there are 4 Ds that we can talk about, is distance. So how
Yes.
is diffuse different from distance? And what do we do in terms of the distance?
Well, diffuse is quite similar to distance, but distance also involves some sort of observer mode, more observer mode, whereby
Okay.
imagine that you are sitting at the bus stop and you can see different vehicles going past in your mental screen. They could be
Yeah.
the bus, they could be the motorcycle, the vehicles of different colors, different shape and sizes. And you just watch them because they are not important to you. They are part of the traffic. But alike to this traffic, our thoughts are traffic in our mind appearing every single microsecond. And some of these thoughts may be negative and some of these thoughts may be positive. And once we get distracted by it, we lose ourselves, right? So the
Yeah.
last part is distance. So be aware that we can observe this thought. So one of the great exercise is to put out both of our hands like this. Okay, I don't know if I can see, all right? Hands like this. Yeah, so let me move a bit nearer. Okay, so left hand, so move to your left hand stands for negative beliefs of ourselves, negative thoughts, and negative
Okay.
assumptions. Right hand stands for positive thoughts, healthy thoughts of ourselves. Okay, so let's move to the left hand first. say all the things that you believe about yourself, negative beliefs. So I may say something like, I am helpless, I am worthless, I am not good enough, I am not good enough, I am a loser, I'm a failure, etc. So think about these thoughts that you have mentioned and keep on looking at it and feel how heavy it feels.
Put
Okay,
it in
after
your left hand.
in the left hand. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's look at your left hand. Your head is completely fixated on your left hand while you repeat these negative thoughts.
Okay.
After you are done so, slowly take a deep breath and shift, very slowly turn your head to the right hand. And once you turn your head to the right hand and completely focus on it and say things that you like about yourself, like, I am actually doing good work in my life. I have a lot of friends around me, and I'm actually doing meaningful things. And what I do will impact other people. I have things that I love and people who love me. And I would like to become better of myself, a better version of myself, and feel the emotions. So this is a very quick exercise of shifting your distancing yourself from a negative thought and shifting to a positive one.
And we use the hands because we kind of project the thoughts onto the hand. Because it's
Yes.
something physical. I mean, I feel like for me that definitely helps. I mean, I feel like I think the first time I did this, I feel a bit stupid. I felt a bit stupid. I mean, like really, you feel a bit dumb, but you know, I actually think that don't knock it till you've tried it, right? Because I think we don't realize how much of our thoughts and emotion is actually manifested, and also we can get rid of it through the physical body. And I mean, some people it works better on some people than others. Like for me, I find that these kind of physical exercises, while I feel real dumb doing it, and honestly, I may not do it in front of anyone else, but I'm just doing it in front of y'all now. But I mean, if you do it in the privacy of your own home, you will find that it really does work. So I would say, like, again, I say don't knock it till you tried it. Okay, so I understand now why you decided to talk about diffuse before distance. And so the 4Ds to recap are distract, dispute, diffuse, and distance. And I think these are 4 great steps that we can incorporate when we realize that we are falling into one of the 15 cognitive distortions.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna just, the time always flies by. We're gonna end off maybe with just one general tip, Stefan, if you can suggest. I think in positive psychology, we call these positive psychology interventions, but that's a fancy name basically for an activity or just something specific that a person can do to maybe help yourself out of cognitive distortion, or as you feel yourself falling into a depressive state, maybe this is something that you might want to try to do just to jolt yourself out of it.
Yeah. So let me share with you one positive psychology intervention. Like you say, it's a fancy name, but we can change it to calling it a social intervention, right?
Yeah.
I really like this one. It's called kindness, random acts of kindness. If we can do 3 random acts of kindness or even just one, it will immediately shift our negative state to a positive state. Because when you do good for other people, right, or help other people without asking it, immediately the person will feel appreciative. And in return, you will feel appreciated and also feeling grateful for yourself too. So I would recommend random acts of kindness.
So if you're not sure what you can do, I think in this time of COVID and stuff, it doesn't even have to be something very big. I think you could just, pick up like a little food or like maybe a small dessert for a friend or even like a random neighbor in your block. I think that'd be quite nice. The other day, my neighbors downstairs actually walked up and knocked on the door and just offered us freshly baked cookies, which really made my day, and I think we always think that as the recipient, in this case, I was the recipient of very yummy chocolate chip cookies. We always think that person gets the joy, but actually the person giving it gets, I think, possibly the greater joy. So I think that's what we're kind of suggesting here with to do like a random act of kindness. If you're feeling like really, really crappy, maybe just do something nice with someone else. And I think that will generally change your mood.
Yeah, and it has such a big impact and profound impact, not just for the recipient and the giver, but also the people around. If I could give an example on my fiancée Alice, she just packed like gifted plants to her friends. Ooh. And sending over to their address, and when I wasn't a recipient, but I felt so grateful that it's such a great exercise that everybody will feel happy and much more gratitude.
It is such a cute thing. I mean, I can't seem to keep my plants alive. I need to get some tips from your fiancé Alice on that. But yeah, I think other than food, yeah, plants are a really, really nice thing that I think everyone can appreciate. And then, or if, I have a lot of friends who keep wanting to get plants. I think if someone showed up at their house with a random plant, they will really appreciate it. So yeah, try a random act of kindness. If nothing else fails, just to jolt you out of a depressive state. Okay,
Awesome.
I think that's kind of like all the time we have for this week. I hope that answered your question a bit on what we can do about some of the cognitive distortions that we have. And of course, Stefan, I don't think I introduced you today because I assume everyone has been joining us every week. Stefan is the founder of the School of Positive Psychology. And there you can find you can take either full-on educational diplomas or postgraduate courses on psychology, but you can also just take short courses if you want to know more about specific branches of positive psychology. And I think the website is positivepsych.edu.sg. Am I right?
Yeah, it's www.positive, POSITIVE, psych, PSYCH.edu.sg.
Okay, so make sure you go check that out. And in the meantime, also keep tuning into our podcast. We will be back next week. Update on the timing soon. You can follow both our IGs for an update on the timing. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us every week. And thank you, Stefan.
Thank
Hope
you,
you're
Jade.
keeping well. 2 days to the end of circuit breaker.
Yes.